Hello there, this is Revyoutoober, and this time I am doing MovieTuber. I have just got done watching Friday, should be a couple days ago now, although it was late Friday night, and this is early Sunday morning, so more like a day and a half. But anyways, I watched Molly's Game. Now, a bit of a side note, I had was surprised to find out an hour ahead of time that the seats were almost completely sold out at the theater. And then I also found out that it wasn't playing too many times, and it wasn't playing at AMC theaters, just Wierenberg Marcus by us, which might have been why it was so crowded. This is a good film, good cast, good director. I'm not sure why it's not playing at AMC. But the other thing, too, was right in the middle of this movie, somebody sitting behind us gets a phone call, which is one problem. He answers it, which is another problem. He doesn't leave his seat, which is another problem. And he doesn't even whisper when he's trying to talk to whoever's on the phone. He just has a loud conversation in the middle of the movie theater while the movie's going on and people are yelling at him. Luckily, it was apparently about a 30-second conversation, or else I think somebody, at least, I was planning on getting up and having the guy thrown out, but whatever. I mean, that a topic for another day, but that interrupts my movie even worse, and doesn't guarantee the person will get thrown out, and sometimes it causes a huge commotion, which is even worse. So, I mean, what do you do? But anyways, so yeah, I enjoyed the movie. It was really easy to get into. It was another movie that's based on true events or whatever. How true it is, I don't know. I think even though there was a book written about what happened, this isn't just about what happens during the book, but what happens afterwards too. So I don't think it's really based on the book completely. So for those that don't know, Molly's Game is about this girl named Molly, or woman named Molly, who in the past had been training by her father to be an Olympic skier and was almost there, but had her dreams dashed, and then was going on to her second career, which was going to college for law school. But she wanted to take some time off before she does that and just kind of live her life, because her dad was demanding and she didn't really ever have time alone or freedom. So she started living with a friend in LA, gets a job being a secretary for some weird dude, and having to run his poker games, which include several celebrities and some rich people. And then she basically ends up getting fired, so she takes over the game herself and starts running her own games until she's put under arrest for the reasons that they're illegal, but also for other reasons, and having things happen to her without having to spoil too much. So I thought it was thrilling enough to see what is going to happen. It's told in a way that was entertaining, and I cared about what happened in the characters. They paint her in a nice picture in modern times, especially towards the end. In the beginning, she's more of a kind of a bratty, know-it-all, gotta do it myself, taking control of people kind of person. Not really, really bad, but someone that maybe they'd softened her look from being really bad. But anyways, so the action in this movie goes between the past and the present. It goes from when she's a kid and flashes forward to the present part would be while she's getting a lawyer to help defend herself. And the past part is a little bit of her life growing up, and then a lot of her running the poker games and stuff that's in the book. Basically told like it is in the book, with celebrities' names being left out and being played by other celebrities, which is kind of funny. And I guess maybe the reason why it's shot that way is supposed to be because her lawyer, who's played by uh, Idris Elba, is reading the book to kind of get to know her, his client, and get to know her. And it shows him at times with the book partly finished whenever it cuts back and forth. So I think that's the why it does that. But it's also interesting, so you don't get the whole. I really think it would be less interesting if you got the whole poker tale and then to flash forward and went to the law tale. But going back and forth between it, that kind of leaves natural cliffhangers, both in her past story and with the lawyer story. The lawyer, they're going back and forth on what they should do, and does she want to release the names? Do they trust each other? Do they not trust each other? Does he even want to be her lawyer? So there are cliffhangers there too. I think I was enjoying the movie all the way through, but I thought it was just going to be enjoyable. It really wraps up really nicely, I think. I mean, the poker part of the story, the past part of the story is kind of more natural, but the present day story ties up loose ends, has happy endings, has emotional come-tos, a good emotional climactic ending for it all. I think some of the greatest scenes, which include the end, are back and forth kind of banter between Jessica Chastain's character and Idris Elba. Both do a great job. But it gets kind of heated. They finally come to I think they're working with each other, but they kind of really come to understand each other at the end, and I think that really makes it, for a good ending, makes a difference for both of them, and gives you, I mean, it shows you some of the negatives of how the Justice Department can work, but also some of the positives of how the Justice Department can work. And it shows you some of the negatives of both the lawyer and Molly, their personality, but also shows you some of the positive of the personality. And I kind of like that, where it gives you shades of how people are. I think it's more realistic, because people aren't just like, oh, I'm the super popular, perfect good guy character, I'll never do anything wrong, and people aren't just like, oh, I'm going to take every opportunity to do things bad. But at the same time, their characters stay true to who they are. Their sense of justice might be wrong or different or weird, but they stick to it, and that consistency makes them seem more realistic. And of course, it's another one of those true tales. I mean, there's a lot of those nowadays. It seems to be a lot less original scripts. But, I mean, I don't mind. They're good stories. I don't, I guess, read the newspaper or the gossip columns enough to see all of these different stories as they happen. Although, granted, this one was, I guess, early 90s, going up to closer to present day. But, I mean, if I've already seen them, then it might be a little bit different, but being a completely new story for me makes it more interesting for me. Now, let's look at some critics on Rotten Tomatoes. So, on the positive side, we have an NPR critic that says, even though this is Sorkin's directing debut, quite a bit of the clarity comes from the visuals, annotated when necessary, precisely shot, and edited with nearly every trick known to contemporary filmmaking. Yeah, I think there's a lot of good going there, and I forgot to mention it, but Sorkin, I think, does really good pictures in general. I've liked a lot of things he does, even if he hasn't directed. And I think that's even more important than the directing. But the directing, I think, was done really well. It wasn't a lot of static shots, and it wasn't too experimental either. But I think it did what it needed to do, and it helps it stay more interesting. As it mentioned, the editing plays into that too. But yeah, I guess Sorkin seems to have really good visual in his head for what he wants. and a very good ability to get what he wants on film. So if he's working with the direction, with the story, with getting into the editor's room, working with the actors, someone like him can draw out a really good film with his ideals. On the negative side, I see I see one review that just looks like a really stupid pun on poker. I think people, I don't know, maybe he didn't like the movie, but when you put up a stupid review like that, it seems more like you're trying to come up with a good headline than actually putting down your opinion. But here's a different one. At a certain point, everyone watching Molly's Game will form the question, why should I care about any of this? It's a question Shorkins should have anticipated. He has no good answer. I mean, maybe he didn't care. Maybe he doesn't like poker, so he doesn't find it interesting. I like poker. Maybe he doesn't care about celebrities, so he didn't find it interesting. I don't really care about celebrities that much, but it was interesting, I think, to see the celebrities going in and out of the game. Maybe he thinks that Molly's not the perfect character, so why does he care about her? I think she's a character you can relate to. Not in every single way, but I think she's a character you can relate to. I think Idris Elba, who's also in a good half of the movie, is another character you can relate to. They're not the same kind of character. They juxtapose themselves to create the tension that's there. But I think that's what makes it interesting, so I don't quite get how he doesn't care about what's going on. I mean, you could say that about anything, so I don't know what this critic is looking for. But anyways, I would definitely suggest to watching it. Forgot my own. I would give it probably like a 9 out of 10. It's definitely not perfect, but there's a lot of good, both entertaining and critically, that's done well with it. So one of the better movies I've seen lately. I just don't know if it's going to be up for awards, but then again, I don't know what's up for awards. We'll find that out soon. If I haven't mentioned it before, I do like to wait until the Oscar nominations are out, then watch all the Best Picture nominations and a couple of the other categories nominations so that I can form a good opinion on what I think should win. Makes it a little more interesting. And that's, I mean, I could also go on about how the Oscars aren't really the best picture. It's kind of a political picking out who should win, going by what's considered arty enough to make it. I mean, I'll go over that later, but it does make it more interesting anyways. So, thanks for watching my review, and hopefully I'll see you next time.